Hey, we are in North Phoenix, staying here at my daughter's house. We have left our RV resort in Gold Canyon, Arizona. We've had a beautiful time out there, but we're getting ready to hit the road again. So just before we start jetting off to the southeast portion of the United States and our second big journey while we've had this channel up, I wanted to go over a topic with you that seems to generate a lot of responses, and in my own opinion, probably about 90% of those responses are not true. And that has to do with search and seizure in your recreational vehicle, your motorhome. If you want to get a lot of responses on a Facebook page that you belong to, let's say you belong to an RV type full-time RV channel Facebook page, and you want to get a lot of responses on a question you put up, simply type in, hey, does a police officer need a search warrant to search my RV? And you are going to get probably hundreds of responses in the first 24 hours. And again, in my opinion, about 90% of those are going to be wrong. So I wanted to do a short video today because once again, I happen to be on one of my Facebook pages belonging to a full-time RV channel. And sure enough, someone had asked that question. They said they got stopped in the state of Texas, and the officer had asked for a consent search to search their RV. And the driver, the owner of the RV, said, sure, go ahead. And then the officer didn't find anything and left. And then the person had a question, what if I would have said no? Would he have needed a search warrant to search my RV? And all of a sudden, he got all kinds of responses. And I thought I would kind of give a little bit of clarity as to whether a police officer needs a search warrant or not to search your RV, under what circumstance there are different kind of searches. Before I go too far on this topic, I want to make one thing though explicitly clear. I cannot give you legal advice. I'm not an attorney. I've never been to law school. I've never represented any legal claim in court from an attorney point of view. So I'm not giving you a legal opinion. I'm not doing that, and I can't do that. All I'm giving you is my opinion as a police officer of 33 years. As many of you know that follow the channel, I retired from the Phoenix Police Department just over 33 years. I got out with the rank of sergeant. I was a sergeant for almost 20 years. I was a sergeant for 19 years. So I've got a lot of experience involving search and seizure. I was a detective in several different areas within the department, and I was also a supervisor detective. But again, I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just giving you what my training and my expertise that I've garnered over these years and what I know about search and seizure, on top of what I've simply read. And a lot of people will start espousing opinions and ideas and beliefs on search and seizure, particularly when it comes to RVs, and they really haven't done any kind of research on it at all. They really don't have any background. They've never been to law school at all. They've never been in law enforcement, anything like that. But then suddenly, the way they attest things on the internet, you think that they'd be experts, and they're really not. So we're going to give a little bit of clarity if we can. Okay, so search and seizure is covered under the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. So reading verbatim here, the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So if you hear that out loud, a lot of people who don't really know a lot about the law, but they read that, they go, oh, the police have to have a search warrant to search virtually anything you own. And that's actually not true at all. In general, there are 6 different types of searches that law enforcement can do. Of the 6 different types of searches, only one of them requires a search warrant.
Fascinating.
Let's talk a little bit about the different types of searches there are, and I'll try to give you some examples of this. And again, this is just my opinion. I know there's some attorneys out there that might see this video and go, oh, he is so wrong, he's way off. And you're going to get that from any attorney. Again, I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just giving you my information, my opinion based on my knowledge of being a police officer for 33 years and working in and around the court system. So as I get my glasses on here, let's go over the 6 different kinds of searches there are, and then we'll talk a little bit about stop and frisk. Number 1, and this is what most people are used to, is searching with a search warrant.
Police, search warrant, open the door. Open the door, now.
A police officer must have probable cause to obtain a search warrant. A probable cause is kind of basically exactly what it means. It's probable that whatever it is or whoever it is you're looking for is in this location or inside this vehicle, car, residence, whatever it might be. It's probable that it's there and that you are asking for a search warrant. You're swearing before a judge that you want to go into said location, dwelling, or whatever it might be, and seize that. And a judge can issue that type of warrant. The next type of search we're going to talk about is the consent. Consents do not require a search warrant. Consent searches are done all the time by law enforcement, and basically it's the officer asking you if they can search an item that belongs to you or that you have control over.
Where are you headed to, man?
Home
Where's home?
on University on Pier Drive.
How long you been in Orlando? Huh?
I work here since August or so.
Okay, your address just still says St. Pete on your license.
Yeah, I need to update it when my tag gets punched.
Okay. Are you concealed weapons holder? Any weapons in the vehicle I need to be aware of? Nope, nothing illegal in the car. All right, so after I'm done, if I ask to search the vehicle to verify what you're saying is true, you don't mind?
I do mind, but only because I'm a lawyer.
Okay. So you know what consent is? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
So you have nothing in the vehicle?
I have absolutely nothing in the vehicle.
Okay. And you don't mind confirming that by allowing us to look and make sure there's nothing in the vehicle? As you can imagine, we hear no all the time as they have nothing and we find stuff.
I'd rather not search my phone.
Okay. Cool. Just hang tight, brother, okay?
It can be anything from a suitcase or luggage at an airport. It can be your home, it can be your car, it can be your cell phone, it can be a lot of different things. The officer is asking if he or she can search that type of particular item at your consent. You are allowing them to search that. Again, without getting into too many different aspects of it, there are various caveats. The officer can't show coercion in asking you to consent to a search. As an example, a lot of people don't know this, but if an officer stops you in your motor vehicle and he asks you for your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, and he has those in his hand, and then he comes back to you and says, "May I search your vehicle?" while he's still got those in your hand, and you say, "Sure, go ahead," and the officer searches your vehicle and finds some type of illegal item in there, takes you to jail for it. Is that a good search or a bad search? That is a bad search because the police officer was still holding your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance in his hand, and courts have deemed that to be coercion. Now, if he hands that stuff back to you and then asks, "May I search your car?" and you say, "Sure, go ahead," that's a good search. But they can't hold anything. You can't get 4 or 5 officers on a dark and stormy night surrounding you with flashlights in your face saying, "Is it okay if I search your property?" And you say, "Sure," because the courts are going to look at that and they're going to say that's coercion. You can't do that. So in general, consent's got to be just what it is. It's got to be completely voluntary. There can't be any coercion. The officer can't pressure you to search. And the other thing about a consent search is that any time during the search, you can actually say, "Time out, I'm pulling away my consent, and I don't want you to search any further." Hypothetically, if you've got something in the trunk of your car that you don't want in there, and the police officer is searching the front of the car based on a consent search, and he starts or she starts going further back into the car and getting ready to open the trunk, and all of a sudden you realize, "Oh, wait a minute, I have something illegal in my trunk that I don't want the officer to find," and it's a consent search, you can say, "You know what, I'm revoking my consent search and I don't want you to search any further." The next one is the motor vehicle exception. The motor vehicle exception has a lot to do with exigency. If a police officer stops a motor vehicle for whatever reason, and he believes, he's got probable cause to believe that there is something inside the vehicle that's illegal, does he need a search warrant to search that vehicle? And the answer is no.
All right, put your hands behind your back, all right? Don't move. Oh, all right, just chill out.
What am I being pulled over?
What you got?
Hold on, Jack. Let me get this clear.
Yeah, it's heroin.
terrible. Yeah. Bag and torn.
One of the most common examples of that is the burning odor of marijuana. A lot of states are changing their marijuana laws now. The possession of marijuana or small amounts of marijuana is totally fine. You can do that. However, you cannot smoke marijuana and operate your vehicle at the same time. So the smell of burning odor of marijuana is probably still going to play a factor into this. So let's say hypothetically a police officer pulls you over and smells the burning odor of marijuana coming from your car. Does the police officer need a search warrant to search your car? No, because the vehicle is in a mobile condition. It could drive away. The driver could drive off. The driver could toss the keys to the car to a passenger and say, hey, you drive off, I'm going to stay here with the officer, whatever it might be. But the officer is smelling odor coming from that vehicle, and the officer cannot allow the vehicle to take off to drive away. So at that point, the question might pop up, okay, so the officer sees the car, the car's not going to go anywhere. He's got the keys to the car. He potentially may have the driver in handcuffs because he smells burning odor of marijuana. He might think the driver's impaired, intoxicated on marijuana, something like that. At that point, the car's not going to go anywhere. Does the officer still need to draw a search warrant at that point to go into the car? And the answer to that is no, he does not, or she does not. Because the courts realize that traffic stops, even in parking lots and on roadways and things like that, can be inherently dangerous to the officer. There could be a traffic collision, that's why you got your emergency lights on. There could be bad foul weather condition. There could be a lot of different things going on. There could even be a third party may approach the vehicle with another set of keys, and when the officer's not looking, get into the car and drive off. There's a lot of different things that go on with that. So courts have made the automobile exception. Basically, if the officer develops probable cause that he believes there is something inside the car that needs to be seized and secured right away, that officer can do it without a search warrant. A lot of people don't understand that. They believe that a police officer must have a search warrant to search their car, and that is not true. That's one of the primary things that I'm talking about when you get these statements up on Facebook or in discussions that a police officer must have a search warrant to search your vehicle. That is not true. So the fourth type of search there is the hot pursuit search. If an officer is in a hot pursuit, and that's what it's called, he's chasing someone,
What's your hands, bro?
whether it be in his vehicle or he's on a foot pursuit or something like that, and he's right behind someone, and he's running as fast as he can, and he's catching up to the suspect, and that suspect goes inside of a dwelling, a home, a vehicle, whatever it might be, an RV, and goes inside that home, closes the door on the officer. Does the officer need to have a search warrant to go in and chase that suspect and to capture that suspect, arrest him? And the answer to that is no, he does not, because the officer is in hot pursuit. He's chasing the suspect. Just because the suspect merely slams the door in front of an officer does not mean King's X, the chase is over and the officer has to turn around and get in his car and drive off. Absolutely not. The officer can chase the suspect into that home, even if the home is his, it's a family member, or someone he doesn't even know, he can chase the suspect inside the house. The fifth type of search there is incident to arrest. This one probably makes a lot of common sense to people. I think even people that think that search and seizure laws are too general for police officers, I think most people would probably agree with this one. If you arrest someone for shoplifting, any type of crime you could think of, the officers place someone in custody, taking them into custody, handcuff them for whatever crime it might be. Does the officer then need a search warrant to search that person's pockets? And the answer to that is no.
No, sir, I got it. What is in here? What's in here? Drugs.
The officer does not need a search warrant to go in and search pockets, things like that. If the officer is going to arrest a woman and the woman is holding a purse, and this has happened to me, I don't know how many times in my law enforcement career, but I'm going to take a woman into custody, and at the time of the arrest, I'm going to take her into custody, she takes her purse that she's holding in her hand or over her shoulder or was next to her in the seat. She picks up that purse and she hands it to a friend, a relative, her husband, whatever it might be, and say, here, take my purse. Can the officer then grab the purse and say, no, that purse is yours, I get to search it? Yes. She's in contact with that purse. She's holding it. It could be in her hand, on her lap, whatever it might be. The officer has every legal right to grab that purse and search it. Oftentimes in situations like this, these purses contain drugs, drug paraphernalia, other contraband. and they want to get rid of it as soon as they can. They know they're going to jail, so they want to take that purse and go, oh, I'm going to give this to my sister. No, it doesn't work that way. The officer gets to grab the purse, open the purse, and go through it, make sure there's no contraband in there. A lot of people may not agree with that, but that's the law. The officer has a right to search the purse and go through it. Now, if you're going to arrest a woman inside the living room of her home and the purse is back in her bedroom, does the officer have the right to search it back there? No, not at all. But inventory search. Inventory search is rather unique and has to go in both civil liability and an department's policies and rules. Courts have ruled that if an officer is going to seize a vehicle, tow a vehicle, let's say you get arrested for DUI and that officer wants to tow your vehicle and put it in the impound lot because you're getting arrested. That officer has a lawful right, if it's in the department's policies, to inventory the vehicle for liability purposes. And what I mean by that is, let's say you get arrested for DUI, the officer doesn't search your vehicle and inventory, he just tows your car to A&A Auto Towing, and then you go to jail, you make a complaint the next day to the police department, I had $50,000 in the trunk of my car, and then when I picked up my vehicle, that $50,000 is no longer there. Somebody owes me $50,000. Those are liability issues. Potentially, not all the time, but potentially, there may be some liability issues with the police agency. They were initially in charge of seizing that vehicle. They then gave it to A&A Towing, or whatever towing company it might be, and they put it there, and this person's claiming that there was $50,000 in there. Where's my $50,000? There's a possibility that courts, a jury, somebody may look at that and go, you know, the police department should have been more careful. They should have inventoried the car to make sure there weren't any valuables in there. So if a police agency within their policies allows for their officers to do an inventory search of a vehicle that they're going to seize, they can conduct that. They're looking for valuables, they're looking for gold or jewels or diamonds or money or whatever it might be. In the course of doing that inventory search, if the officer opens up the trunk of the car and finds a dead body in the trunk of your car, are you possibly going to jail for murder? And the answer to that is yes, because that's a lawful search. Courts have realized that officers can do inventory searches of vehicles. I'm going to talk a little bit about stop and frisk. A lot of people will tell you that all searches require probable cause, and that's not true. We've already talked about two of them that do not require probable cause. Consent search does not require probable cause on the officer's part. The officer can ask to search virtually anything at any time, and you can either say yay or nay, yes or no. The officer doesn't need probable cause to ask for a consent search. And the other one is the inventory search. The officer doesn't need probable cause to conduct an inventory search. He's doing it for liability issues because he's going to hypothetically tow a vehicle and he wants to make sure there's not $50,000 in the trunk. He doesn't have any probable cause to believe there's $50,000 in the trunk. He just wants to make sure there's no $50,000 in the trunk. The three that do require probable cause are where a judge is issuing you a search warrant. You're attesting, you're avowing that there's probable cause to search whatever item or person. The final thing we're going to talk about, to me, is not really classified as one of the 6 different types of searches. It's kind of a subsection, and that's the stop and frisk.
Dispatch, Echo 7. I'll be out with that subject. Come here, man. Come here for a second. Come here. If you don't, you better stop, or I would. Come here. Come here. Stop. 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 Take your hands out your pocket. Take your hands out your pocket. If you don't stop, so I'm gonna tase you. I'm not playing with you. Take your hands out your pocket. Take your hands out your pocket. Take your hands out your pocket. Shoot fire!
Officers only need reasonable suspicion for a stop and a frisk. A lot of times, if not 100% of the time, it is based upon the safety of the officer. Courts consistently yield on the side of the police officer for officer safety issues if the officer is able to explain it and explain why he felt frightened, concerned, scared, whatever it might be, that he needed to do a certain course of action. And I'll give you an example of that. Let's say that a bank robbery occurs and the description of the suspect is a male in his mid-50s with a gray beard and kind of a light blue, powder blue shirt on and blue jeans, and he's carrying a backpack. I am walking down the street wearing a light blue shirt, blue jeans, and I'm carrying a backpack. In that armed robbery, the suspect had a gun. Police officers see me walking down the street. They stop me. Do they have legal right at that point to arrest me? No, because I've not been positively identified. Perhaps there's another man right around the corner with gray beard, light blue shirt, and blue jeans, also with a backpack, and that's the real suspect. So the officers, you're not going to go to jail for that. They have to have witnesses come by. It's called one-on-one identification. They may look at bank robbery surveillance photographs, things like that, before an arrest is actually going to take place. But can the officers detain me? And the answer to that is yes. They can place someone in detention. That's actually legal law. That's actually a term that law enforcement uses all the time. I'm not free to go, but I'm not under arrest either. I am in investigative detention. They're continuing out their investigation. I may be the suspect, so they just can't let me go and walk down the street. During that time, during that investigative detention, can they search my pockets? No. Can they search my wallet? Can they search my backpack? No, except I used a gun in the commission of the crime. So now it's an officer safety issue. Might I have the gun in my backpack? Might I have it in my waistband? Even if I'm handcuffed, can I pull out a gun out of my waistband? Yes, it's happened before. So the officers can then do a pat-down search of me to see if I have a weapon on me. They can pat down my pockets. They can pat down the small of my back, my waistband. I would say that if the backpack is removed from me and placed off to the corner several feet away and I'm handcuffed in detention, do the officers have a right to search the backpack? No, because I'm handcuffed, the backpack is several feet away, they can't search the backpack, but they can stop and frisk me, they can search me. As an example, anytime you match the description of a suspect and there may be a weapon in commission of the crime that this suspect is associated with, does the officer have a right to pat you down for weapons for his own safety? And the answer to that is yes. If it's a woman and she's got a purse over her, does the officer have a right in that type of situation to have her open up the purse and look into it to see if that woman has a gun on her? And the answer to that, again, is yes. It's officer safety purposes. Now, can the officer open it up and they pull the purse open and they see 2 ounces of cocaine? Is that a lawful, valid search? The answer to that is yes. They were doing an exigent search based on a potential threat or danger to them. They opened up the purse to verify there was no handgun in there, but when they opened up the purse, they didn't find the handgun, but they saw cocaine. Is that a lawful search? Yes. So you're probably saying, Phil, what the hell are you doing? I said, here I am watching this video about search and seizure and whether your RV is your home or it's an automobile or whatever. And right in the middle of it, it cuts out and now you're wearing a different shirt and it's a different sky background and what's going on. And that is because when you are a YouTube vlogger and you don't have a multi-million-dollar studio like Universal or Fox or Paramount or something like that, you tape things and view things, and then all of a sudden, sure enough, some of the video doesn't quite make it. So we lost some video somewhere, but we're almost done with this video. So just indulge me here just a few minutes, be patient. Let me kind of finish up. So we're going to finish this up by kind of delving into what a lot of people are mostly interested in. Is your RV your home or is it a vehicle? And the short answer is it is not your home. It is your vehicle. That has been decided by the United States Supreme Court. Some people might say, well, you know, in my state, it's considered your home, or in another state, you actually have an option whether you want to consider your RV your home or not, or your vehicle. That's not true. The United States Supreme Court, under California versus Carney, has ruled that your RV is not your home. Let me repeat that. It is not your home. It is a motor vehicle that is operated on the roadway, and that is from the United States Supreme Court. Go over that case a little bit. In California versus Carney, there was an individual by the name of Carney, and he was in the San Diego area, and he was believed to be dealing marijuana from his RV in exchange for sexual favors. And the Drug Enforcement Administration was doing a surveillance of the RV in which they believed Carney was dealing drugs from, and it was parked along a city street in the San Diego area. They saw a teenager go to the RV. The teenager entered the RV. He was there for a period of time. Then he left. As he was leaving the RV, He walked apparently several blocks down the road, and he was contacted by DEA agents, and the juvenile teenager admitted that he did give sexual favors in exchange for marijuana inside Mr. Carney's RV, again, which was parked along the side of the road. Agents went to the RV. They were able to coax Mr. Carney out of the RV. He was detained, and a DEA agent entered the RV without a search warrant and discovered marijuana in plain view. So Carney and his attorney said this was a bad search. The officers should have got a search warrant because Mr. Carney lives in the RV, it's his home, and they should have drawn a search warrant instead of going inside. This went up through several appellate courts in California and eventually making it to the California Supreme Court, which ruled in favor of Carney. And they said, no, the RV is his home, and therefore the search was illegal, that the DEA agent should have gotten a search warrant before they entered the home to look for marijuana. However, then it went to the United States Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court reversed that decision and said no, they did not need a search warrant because the RV was in a mobile state. It could have driven off just like a vehicle, and therefore it fell under the automobile exception, not a home. Now, with that being said, the Supreme Court did not make a decision on, let's say your RV was in an RV park and it's got sewer hookups and water hookups and other utilities, and your jack's down and so forth, and it's not readily able to drive away. That decision has yet to be made by the U.S. Supreme Court. My suspicion is that if that specific type of case were to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, that the U.S. Supreme Court would then rule it is then a home. That's what I think. I'm not a lawyer. That case has never gone before the U.S. Supreme Court. But I think there's obviously differences between an RV driving down the road or parked, in this case in Kearney, parked along the side of the road, than an RV in an RV park that's hooked up with all the utilities. It's not going to go anywhere. So again, that decision has been made by the U.S. Supreme Court. My gut feeling, though, is if it is, they're going to look at it as two different situations. Again, an RV driving on the road, you're stopping a traffic stop for speeding or whatever, and the officer develops some probable cause that there might be some kind of contraband or something inside your RV. Does the officer need a search warrant to enter the RV? And the answer to that is no. And the Supreme Court has ruled they don't deem your RV as your home in that situation. So if you hear I guess we'll describe it as a wannabe attorney, perhaps on a Facebook post or something like that, and says that the police definitely need a search warrant to enter your RV, the answer to that as it stands is no. That is not true. There's one final topic I wanted to bring out about interaction with law enforcement, search and seizure, and things of that nature. If you are stopped by law enforcement and you disagree with what the police officer is doing, you believe that he's doing something wrong, something illegal, he shouldn't be doing it, whatever it might be, that is not the time nor the place to argue with the officer. If you look at all the YouTube videos that are out there about some real tragedies that have occurred involving police officers and contacting citizens where people have died, 99% of them start off with the citizen either not obeying the officer's commands, resisting, fighting, fleeing, something like that. If you have an issue, if you have a dispute with what an officer is doing, number one thing to do is to obey the officer. You may not like it, you may not like what he's doing, but obey the officer and then ask for a supervisor to respond to the scene. If an officer yells at you and says, hey, get your hands up, get down on the ground, turn around, come here, whatever it might be, whatever the officer might say, do it. Comply with the officer. Then when timing is appropriate, because sometimes the officer's super busy, there's a lot going on, when it's appropriate, ask for a supervisor to respond to the scene. I was a police sergeant for many years, and I responded to a lot of scenes where citizens were upset with the actions of an officer. They felt he was unprofessional or he was doing something illegal or whatever it was, and I responded to the scene, and I investigated that. I tried to find out what it was going on and maybe tried to explain to the citizen if the officer's conduct was correct. I tried to explain it to the citizen the best I could. Now, there are some people that just don't want to listen, and I get that. But again, don't argue with the officer, fight, resist, or flee the officer. Obey what the officer is saying. Then when it's appropriate, ask for a supervisor respond to the scene so they can investigate it, try to find out maybe the officer's actions were wrong, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, whatever it could be. In a situation where the officer's going to search, again, we'll say your RV, and you don't think the officer's got probable cause to do it, don't fight or argue with the officer. You can certainly mention, I'm not consenting to this search, I think your search is illegal, and I'd like to see a supervisor. But don't prevent the officer from doing the search. Most likely you're not a lawyer, and these things are going to be determined by judges. If they do find some type of illegal contraband, something illegal inside the RV, and it turns out that the search is illegal, the judge is going to throw it out. You are not going to go to jail or prison or be convicted based upon an illegal search. But making that determination is not done by you on the side of a roadway or a highway in front of a police officer saying, I believe that you were wrong and I'm not going to allow you to search this. That's not the right time or place to do this. So again, obey the officer, follow the officer's directions, and if you think what that officer, he or she, is doing something wrong, then ask for a supervisor. I hope you liked this video. Went a little bit longer than I thought. It's probably close to 30 minutes, and I apologize for that, but there was a lot to go over, but I apologize. I hope this video is able to help you a little bit. Again, I'm not giving you legal advice. I can't give you legal advice. These are just opinions from a retired cop of 33 years. But hopefully it kind of gives you some idea about at least what my thought process is, and maybe what a police officer's thought process is if they have interaction with you and they're going to try to conduct a search. If you like this video or any other videos, please consider subscribing to Blue Line RV Adventures. It doesn't cost any money at all. It really helps Karen and I continue on with their journey. And remember, at Blue Line RV Adventures, we do have your six.